Let's see how to make this a Spring Boot application. Following is the very minimum you have to do to make this, or in fact any Java application, a Spring Boot application. First, create a main class extending from the Spring Boot Servlet Initializer class. Then add the Spring Boot application annotation to that class. Finally, add the main method. Now let's look at each step in detail. First, create a main class. You can give any name to it, so I'll name it Commit Application. This main class should be placed in the root package. And this allows for component scan to apply on the whole project. So the package structure of this project looks like this at the moment. There is com.command.controller package where I have the commit controller class, and then the com.command.entity package which has the commit class, and it goes on like this. So the root package is com.commit, and this is where I want to place the main class in. Next, adding the Spring Boot application annotation. This is a convenience annotation that is equivalent to declaring these three annotations: enable auto configuration, component scan, and add configuration. So what do they do? First, let's look at enable auto configuration annotation. As the name suggests, this enables the auto configuration of the Spring application context, attempting to guess and configure beans that you're likely to need. If you have worked with a typical Spring application, you should be familiar with all the configurations that are needed, such as data sources, entity manager factories, dispatcher servlets, and the list goes on. By enabling auto configuration, the Spring Boot framework kind of looks at the jar dependencies that you have added to the application and the existing configurations for the application if there is any, and then based on these automatically configures your Spring application. For example, if you have H2 on your class path and you have not manually configured any database connection beans, then Spring Boot auto-configures an in-memory database. How convenient is that? Next, component scan annotation. This is the annotation which we can use to tell the Spring framework where to scan for beans. That is basically the classes annotated with @component, @service, or @repository. So when this annotation is on a particular class, the package of that class and all of its sub-packages will be scanned for beans. That's why we want to place the main class in the root package so that all the beans could be found. Last one is the configuration annotation. This basically allows to register extra beans in the context. Spring Boot favors Java-based configuration, and in the documentation it is said that although it is possible to use a Spring application with XML sources, we generally recommend that your primary source be a single configuration class. Usually the class that defines the main method is a good candidate as the primary configuration. So I guess that explains why it is bundled in the Spring Boot application annotation. So now we've annotated the main class with the Spring Boot application annotation, it is time to add the main method. And in the main method, we delegate to the static run method of the Spring application class, providing the main class and the args as parameters to launch the application.